I think we will start from the beginning. We will want to make some interactive with the audience. So could you answer the question is who is related to the hyper casual there from the audience? Could you raise up the hand? Who is making the hyper casual games? Great. So I hope that so everyone knows what is it, what is the hyper casual games, like how it works. Okay, great. Then we will start from the basics, and we will start like here we have both parts of the hyper casual games market, the publishers and the developer. So we can discuss both parts of the situation of the market. The first question is what the model of the cooperation right now working in 2022 between developers and the publishers. Let's talk about that. What is the situation and explain it. You can take a microphone. I will help you. Wait a minute. You can take this one. You can answer it.
Sure. Okay. So in 2022, we saw quite a lot of changes actually on the market. It's not the gold rush it used to be before, and now it's getting harder and harder to get a hit game and even more profitable game. On the flip side, like if you see from developers' perspective, for example, like getting payment per prototype became harder because publishers started to focus on more experienced studios, and they often work with them based on burn rate model. For example, it's a new word which started to be like viral in 2022, and you can explain it because the product needs to be more polished, it needs more back and forth, and usually if before you could measure the quantity of work by payment per prototype, nowadays it's harder, so you need to work in a closer collaboration with a publisher, and therefore you need to pay big studios, experienced students monthly. So I think a lot of changes are coming, and that's challenging for both publishers and developers. So yeah.
Gotcha.
So obviously there are lots of changes in the market, as my colleague mentioned. But I think the main thing that changes is the focus, right? So on the testing process, the main focus was always the CPI. But with the market and the user behavior changes, now the metrics that we are looking got deeper and deeper, right? So, and it's actually, I think it's better for the game developers and studios as well, because we are the people who really love to make games, right? And when we start to make more deeper games, more deeper mechanics, more satisfying games, which we will have the better in-game metrics, which we will lead to a launch, hopefully. I think that's also another thing that we should be considering while checking the market, checking the trends, and deciding about the prototypes that we are going to try.
Good.
Yeah, I agree with Berkay and Katerina. You said that the way we do games changed because now it's not more CPI centric and it's more, let's say, sometimes retention centric and other metrics as well. And us developers evolve the way we're creating the games. And like I said, right now it's kind of better for us because before, and because it was CPI centric, it was kind of more, marketable games, other than not games created with passion. But right now, since we are trying to create more games that have higher retention, that are more playable for longer periods of times, I think it's better for some developers.
Gotcha. Thank you. So. Small question about the cooperation between publishers and developers companies. Is there any kind of problems to find right now the publisher for the gaming studio. We we will talk about the generally about the all the market, all the world, and then we will talk about the Turkish games market, because the main question is that before there was a monopoly with some of the big publishers who is signing just exclusive contracts, and then right now I know that there are some of them cancelled, and there are a lot of free studios who is looking for the new companies. What is the situation right now? On your opinion, I think that's the question for the publishers, and then for the gaming studios, please.
I think it's better for us because we, as Boom Hits, we are more working on a more focused with our developers and our studios, because we want to spend time with them. We want to invest time with them, because time actually is the essential thing while making the games, checking the ideas. So right now, I think it's getting easier for us to get in reach with the more studios, because as you said, the higher number of the publishers, which were like a kind of monopoly, as you said, now they are changing their models as well. So right now it's good for the companies as well, the developers as well, because they don't know how we work, right? Because they have been exclusive for some time, and now they are again getting know us, and I think it's a better thing for them as well, because every company has a different work way, right? And every publisher has a different approach of testing and launching the game, soft launching the game. So I think it's good for the studios to work with different publishers as well and find the best one, which will help them to grow as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that finding a publisher on itself is not a problem. Finding the conditions you aim for might be difficult, yeah. But even if you don't find them, I think it makes sense to find a partner who is ready to invest in your coaching, to explain you some things which you might lack, to compensate, for example, for some things you don't have internally. If you, for example, have a weaker part in art, find a publisher who offers you a help of an artist. If you value tools, like everyone values tools nowadays in hyper-casual, find a publisher with a powerful SDK which allows you like very in-depth analysis of metrics, and the publishing manager who will decrypt it for you. You can always find like those, not probably the exact conditions you want, but you'll find a partner who will allow you to grow in what you're doing, and to probably one day to be able to get those conditions, because also a lot depends on relationships. The portfolio might look of a developer, for example, it might look medium quality, but when you start working with a studio, you actually discover that a lot of things in how they work can be fixed just by simple advice from a publisher on game design, on I don't know, even like colors and camera angle. So all those things are improved. You just need to find a good partner and try to strive for perfection.
Yeah, thank you.
Having more options definitely helped studios, because if it was the monopoly back in the rising days of hyper-casual, we wouldn't have more options, and we need to try out different publishers to see like what kind of synergy, what kind of teamwork we have with which publishers. And having more options helps on better cooperations and better partnerships in general. But I think these past five or 6 months, the industry, the hyper-casual market changed quite a bit in the sense of developers, because a lot of monopoly publishers canceled their contracts, ended their contracts. A lot of publishers stopped their operations for hyper-casual or minimized it, and this affected quite a lot of hyper-casual studios. But that also has positive sides and negative sides, because the positive side is the the hyper-casual market was quite filled and quite had a surge of hyper-casual studios. There was a lot of competition, immense competition in the market. And right now, I think it's kind of more, since a lot of hyper-casual studios needed to stop working, right now there is more, it's more stable, I could say.
Gotcha. So let's cover the topic, one of the main one for the development companies. Let's talk about about your side, about from which side of about the publishers. What kind of model of cooperation you have right now, and you are offering, like paid per prototype or exclusive or just a testing? Because the publishers have a different approach to working with the gaming studios. Let's talk. I think let's make a small promo for the publishing part, and let's talk about that. What kind of model of cooperation are you suggest?
We actually have plenty of different options of contracts, like starting from just revenue share and finishing with a famous burn rate for more experienced studios. None of our contracts are exclusive, so we sign up for just one game usually. And of course, if it goes well, if we have good cooperation, if we manage to get some results, we are always very happy to sign some longer contracts. Again, they are non-exclusive, because actually, like nowadays, you can't verify exclusivity. I don't know why people do it, but yeah. Of course, we target long-term relationships, and we are happy to and proud of all those studios who are working with us, like for already like 4, 5, 3, 2 years. The ideal for us is to get the partners whom will grow together with us, and with whom we'll provide like the ultimate synergy in order to make great games. And the questions of contract, it's all discussable. We have plenty of variants which fit any particular situation, like with KPI bonuses, with revenue share, everything is discussable, and there are plenty of options on the table to choose from.
From our side, what we want to achieve is the long-term relationships, right? And to do that, of course, you have plenty of options of the contracts that you can sign and start working. But what we want to do, and what we are trying to do, is to try with every studio that they want to work with us in terms of making the launches, because that's what our aim should be. So we are working with them, but the thing is that even though we have lots of studios, and we know that the studio is good, and we are sure about ourselves as well, but sometimes the chemistry might be lack, right? So that's why we would love to work with studios in a short term of period for some time, and then understand each other, have the chemistry, and if both sides are agrees, then we would like to move on into a longer term relationship. And what we did do, actually, we actually signed 2 joint ventures with our long-term relationship partners as well. One of them was ADC, who became Playamber, and now last year we signed with the Cappuccino as well, which now is Skyloft, and so we helped them to become bigger studios as well. So right now Skyloft, for example, are around 40 people, which is quite good, and now they're getting bigger and bigger. So basically that's what we want to do, and that's how we are trying to work on our business model, on our approaches of the science. So you start with some time, find the chemistry, and then move into the long term, maybe exclusivity, maybe some another deal.
Yeah, thank you. I think right now there's KPI models, PPP models, and exclusive models for developers working with publishers. For us, I think, at least in our experience as Pixelized, we prefer PPP models, because then you can see, test out with all of these publishers and then see what kind of synergy you have. Like I said before in that last question, you can try out your options, and then if it works and if the synergy is great, you can keep working on a PPP model and maybe think about a long-term contract. But some studios prefer exclusivity because some say that it's a safe space for them to have a publisher that they can work long term. But I think, like I said, PPP is, you can have more experience with more publishers, and it's kind of more better for us at least.
Good, but yeah, in terms of exclusive, it's sometimes it's a bit difficult if you're working only with the one publisher, then you not diversify your business, and if he will cancel your cooperation, then your studio or even your business could get a lot of problem, which is happened with some of the teams. So usually I recommend to work not exclusively with the one of the publisher and working diversified it and working with a couple of them, but for sure it's a question of the happiness between you and publisher. If you are really happy, you're making a good games, for sure it's the good way to continue your work, and I think after some of the time they will not cancel it any kind of contract with you, because the publisher as well as you are still happy to working with you. It's a question of the happiness between publisher and you. Gotcha. So yeah, as far as I know, that for the gaming studios, for the small one or even the big one, it's truly important to cover their expenses to produce their games. For sure, mostly of the publishers covering that with that model, which is called the paid per prototype. You're making the prototype, then getting some money of that prototype, publishing manager or representative is testing that. Then you decided you continue to develop that or to iterate or cancel it and then continue to work it. And this model is working very well, but sometimes it meets so I recommend to focus it not on the only that model and focusing mostly to the to define the right right genre, right game, and publish become a hit for sure. So yeah.
I totally agree with the negative points you pointed out, because, for example, in our experience, our first contract was exclusive. And it was like, I think, 4 or 5 months that we have worked with a publisher. But we had games that have potential now that could be used or tested, but we have no way of testing or, pulling something out of that game and putting into our new games, because it's all theirs, and it's a bad thing when you can't, use the potential.
By the way, some of the publishers, when you sign in the contract with them, and for sure, when you are developing the game with some of the publisher, and it's if the publisher get paid for you, paying for you for the prototype, for sure the ownership, half of the ownership and exclusivity for this game on his own, or some of the publishers who is just a testing, also after the test. Before the test, signing with you the agreement that they get your game for the sum of the period. So it should be double check it, because in some of the contracts with some of the publishers, after the sum of the period, you could use it, your game, you could take it and then retest in a 3 or 6 or 5 months. Sometimes it's
yeah, that changes from publisher to publisher, you're right. But sometimes, I think in our case, it was a really long period, I think more than 5 years or something like that.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's kind of hard to, use it again.
So I recommend to to look for to searching for more publishers, to speak with them, to get in more information what are proposed from them, which conditions, because sometimes you could met as a the young studio makes the same mistakes. Just look for the one of the publisher, then trying to sign up some of the contract with them as soon as possible, and then realize that that was a mistake.
So I totally agree, by the way, about the pros and cons, about the PPP contract and the exclusivity. I know that most of the studios are kind of not into exclusivity deals because I understand. They want to understand and see how every publisher is doing, because it's also a learning for them, right? Because they're working, let's say they're working with 3 publishers, 3 prototypes, and then they're working with 3 publishing managers, 3 teams. They are trying 3 testing methods, right? But the negative side of it is that every time, the first one, learning curves goes really slow, because you are testing only one game, and the road, the path to success, to launch, a profitable launch, might be a bit harder, because that's why we really like to have more long-term relationship, because when you focus, when you know that, okay, we are working with Boomis, Ketchup, or whichever publisher, and the aim is make the launch, right? And your only focus is that, so you cover everything else, and you have a good partner, that should be the first thing that needs to be checked, and then you are good to go.
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah, and I agreed that exclusivity might be like very daunting for a developer. And I mean, exclusivity, you need it when the publisher is afraid of something, and what he's afraid of, but he'll take his ideas and go to someone else. But well, that doesn't happen if you have trust. For example, if you believe that this partner is the best to accompany you in executing this idea, if you have transparent relationships, you don't really need exclusivity. The studio will want to work with you without hiding anything from you on their own. And I think that's the basics of a healthy partnership. And as far as like keeping the games after test is concerned, like we at Ketchup, we don't do it, for example, because as soon as we start a test, stop the test, so if we kill the game is instantly getting back to the developer, and the contract is basically over. So yeah.
So if you look for the developers, is you look for right now right publisher, and you want to diversify your business, expand your team or studio, there is represent the right people from the Ketchup, from the Boom Hits, from the Top Nation, from the Crazy Labs, from the Sunday. I recommend found them and to speak with them, because I think they will have interesting approach and can share more details how you can cooperate with them. We already talked about what our the publishers look for, the developers look for. Let's talk. For example, let's talk about I don't know, overview in terms of the Turkish games market, in terms of the hyper casual. What is happening right now? I think there are like open some of like it still was open, but it's opened some gateway to for the developers in terms of cooperation with the new publishers. What is happening in terms of the hyper casual? Is grow or down? What is your opinion in terms of that this year in the 2022? I think they know.
So I would say that overall the hyper casual market is not having a booming growth. It was enjoyed years before. So the downloads are slowing down. That's an obvious fact. We can check it on Sensor Tower, and that's, as I said, not a gold rush anymore. And also there are some difficulties with, as I mentioned, finding payment per prototype and the conditions you are looking for probably. But as far as Turkish market is concerned, actually, I feel like Turkish developers are very result-oriented and they have a really good grasp of a lot of different spheres of hyper-casual, like UA, game design, etc. They kind of have a very good bird view on the industry. So I guess since they strive for perfection and they understand the big picture, that's just a question of time for those who are struggling to find the right publisher with right conditions to adjust and to get what they want. And also, I feel that it's very cool that in Turkey there are some educational programs for developers, for hyper-casual, which are not only made by publishers, but also like Atom, for example, where you can visit an incubator and increase your skills or pursue the job of your dreams. I find it really cool to have such a thriving startup scene and hyper-casual ecosystem in Turkey.
In our cases, I think it's kind of unique because our parent company, Boombit, is in Poland, but the external publishing part, which is Boomhits, is based in Izmir, which makes it the only publisher actually who is based in Turkey. So that actually gives us a wider idea and to overview about the Turkish developers and the studios as well, because as I said, we have long-term partners that we are still working on and we are still keeping in touch. So as we mentioned in the beginning, as I mentioned in the beginning, the focus is changed, right? So, but we are adapting into it. So what changes is that we are changing the games and the team structures as well. So right now the teams, as I observe and talk with you guys, everyone is trying to get bigger because now since we are focusing on the in-game metrics, now we need more people as well, because when it comes to soft launch and launch, you need the manpower and the quality manpower as well. So I see some studios colliding their powers, bringing their powers together, some of them trying to hire more, etc. But I think it's really great to see how we are growing into hyper-casual to hybrid. Some of them are trying now casual as well, which we already have like really great games like from Dream Games, etc. We already have them, but the number of the studios who is trying to make them even more, it's really great, and we are really excited to be a part of that journey as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think right now there's like a general downfall for hyper casual like all around the world, not just for Turkey. But I think other than that, if we take that to the side, I think Turkish gaming industry and Turkish hyper casual industry is like always growing. There's always like quality developer companies that I'm really happy to see them succeed. And I think like he said, there's change coming into these hyper casual studios because of this trigger of hyper casual downfall, a lot of these studios want to change from hyper casual to hybrid casual or casual itself. So right now there is an evolving of the Turkish hyper casual gaming companies.
Can I add one thing? Yeah, sure. Yeah. So sorry. I think we shouldn't skip the part that we always talk about, like the downfall of the hyper casual, but I think we need to focus about that it's adapting. And the reason why hyper casual downloads were so much because we are targeting the mass audience, right? So we are still doing that, but the way that we did changed because the mechanics got saturated as well. Like imagine the runners, like last year. Everywhere was runners, right? But now you can see them because the people are a bit tired of playing the same mechanic as well. So now you are seeing the lots of idle arcades for like 1 year or so, or 6 months, past 6 months. You can see that it's changing, but the main thing is that we are still trying to reach out the mass audience to have the bigger hits.
Gotcha. By the way, for the audience, at the end of the panel discussion, we will ask some of the, if you have some question at the end of the panel discussion, you can ask the panelists. So please prepare the questions. We will be happy to cover it. So let's talk about the like a hyper casual games market 2022, on your opinion, where is it going? Like which trends right now? What is happening at the in terms of 2022? Maybe some changes between publishers and gaming studios. This is more important thing that interesting to cover. Let's talk. Like so the first question is which changes between relations between the publishers and the developers companies right now in 2022. Could you answer it?
Sure. So I think that in 2022 there'll be less collaboration between publisher and developers in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality and depth of those collaborations, I think they're going to intensify. Because again, to make a good product, you need to cooperate really tightly. You need to really make up for everything the studio don't have internally. And this is why it's important as ever to find like the right one for you. And in terms of market, of course, everyone noticed that the switch from marketability to in-game metrics, to playtime, to retention was made, and we need to, when we develop games, we need to think more in terms of addictiveness, addictive core loop, juiciness, how the game feels in your hands, in the hands of a user, and try to hypnotize him. It was always important in hyper casual, but to get this very good retention, good playtime, it's crucial nowadays when we can't rely anymore so much for crazy good marketability, like 10-cent CPIs, which were everywhere 3 years ago. Well, they're almost non-existent in hyper casual market. And also, it's very pleasant to see that as a genre, it evolves. For example, we have like, I wouldn't say it's a new subgenre of hyper casual, but we have now the incremental simulation games like Bucket Crusher from Voodoo, for example, those type of games with 3 buttons of upgrades. And those games, they are there, that's a kind of new type of gameplay, combining like the best out of simulators and the best out of idols. And thanks to its addictiveness, they are taking over the market, and we see them more and more in top charts. So that's an interesting switch from runners, like my colleague said, and that's interesting to watch what's upcoming next, of course.
What I can add is actually in 2022, the work models are changing as well, right? So it used to be like we always used to chase the trends, right? And we were trying to base our games in the trends. But now the beginning of the point changed, because now when your ideation is going on, you need to be also thinking about the monetization of the idea as well. The reason to do that, which I actually really suggest to my partners as well, to do please think how you can monetize the game, because imagine that you find the CPI, right? But if you can't monetize it, if you can't turn into a product from the prototype, then you won't have the lunch, right, that you are looking for. So the work models are changing as well. Now we need to be thinking 3 steps ahead from the beginning, because when it comes to a successful CPI, then we need to be ready to go with at least a rough plan in our minds to go to the launch phase. So I think that is one of the key things that changed in the market and the way how we work as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like Ekaterina said, the quantity is decreasing, but quality is increasing. And also, I think with the partnerships with publishers and studios, I think right now, with the state of hyper-casual, it's even more innovative. And studios need to, branch out and try different like mechanics, not like, use the same old things in the 2021, because right now, like, it's not only CPI centric but retention centric, and that needs more creativeness and innovation to create more games that are not like the market games in 2021, basically.
Gotcha. Small question. Let's imagine that I'm a representative of some small studio. Like we have, I don't know, 3-5 people. We have, I don't know, few prototypes, which is we are not already tested with some of the publisher, and we want to start like right now to working with the publisher. What you could offer, or like what would you ask them, and how you can start to work with them, on your opinion?
So basically, when you have a game, what we want to do is that, of course, we test the ready games as well. But I think the key point about being a good partner is to able to start from the beginning to the end, right? So we would really love to have the ideation process together, to see how we are doing together as well, and how your ideas are being produced as well. So I think that should start from there, because imagine that you have a game and we test it. If it's not good, what do? We do it from the start, right? Because we couldn't understand the partnership, the chemistry between the publisher and the studio, just testing the game. But I think that we need to be working from the beginning to prototype and test it together, right? Of course, we test the games as well, but I think to a healthy start, we start from the beginning. The main thing, I believe, is the core mechanic, right? We checked, of course, the core mechanic. How well can we explain the core mechanic to the user? That should be always our first point, because as we talked about always, we are targeting the mass audience, and we want everyone to able to understand the game from the beginning, from the 5 seconds. And that's what we do in the creatives, the ads as well, right? We are trying to put the most attractive points into the first 3 to 5 seconds, so the user gets attracted in that period of time, because you are giving the ads to the social media like Instagram, let's say, and we are just scrolling, right? We are always doing that, and you have so little time to catch that audience. So to do that, the first thing, I think the core mechanic should be there, the camera angle, and so that actually gives an idea to the publisher how you are thinking and how you are developing a game, right? And of course the art, etc. comes along as well. But I think that the key thing about this starting from beginning and working together.
We start always with a discussion, of course. We talk with developers, ask them about their experience, about what they feel is lacking in their internal structure to be able to help them with that. We also like to ask developers what do they value the most in the relationships with publishers. It's actually a very simple question, but it answers so many things, because you straightforward understand what the studio wants and what's their goal and what can you give to them. And afterwards we propose several options. The good thing is that we sign a contract for each game, so we can easily discuss the conditions between 2 tests, for example. And also contract is good because, for example, if you have a 50% revenue share or bonuses and KPIs, if a contract is signed before the test, which the publisher can change his mind and give you like smaller retention after rev share after the successful test, it's just not an option. So, and of course, when we shake hands on a deal on the prototype, we invite developers to the Slack channel with all of our publishing managers, where we start to discuss ideas, brainstorm, try to pick the most marketable ideas. We often share our own ideas as well. So we kickstart this very intense process of collaborating. And also what I find is very convenient is that our publishing managers, they are doing only publishing, so they're solely focused on product. Meanwhile, like the business development part, like my department, for example, we are focused on legal, on financial, on negotiations, on solving the problems of developers and updating them on things and sending them market trends. And meanwhile, our publishing department, they are 100% product focused. And this actually separation of tasks makes the process more efficient and just it allows people to specialize more in what they do best, which is crucial nowadays in hyper casual.
Gotcha. So let's make more interactive. Right now, we will be happy to answer some of the questions from the audience. Let's talk. Do anyone have some of the question for the panelists? Yeah.
Thanks so much. My question is to Ekaterina. I hope it's not confidential for you. I would like to learn if you want to share how many developer companies are you currently working with right now actively? And my second question is that what is the first criteria that you are looking for from a company or a game? Because I believe that you have tons of game and developer company applications. What is the first thing that you are looking for a company to start partnership or to start evaluation? Thanks so much.
Thank you for your question. Basically, we do not work with a crazy amount of studios. We rather took another path. We don't have a conveyor, so to say. We are focusing on working depending on the season, but it's like between 15 and 30 studios simultaneously. It's not a lot, but it allows us to take a granular approach to each team and to see what do they need to create the necessary relationships with them in order to trust and to improve better. And also it allows us to have a really convenient pipeline when publishing managers do not have tons of projects to manage at once, because that means that any of those projects is lacking in quality in the end. And also the quality of feedbacks and the speed of feedback is better just when people are not overwhelmed with a crazy amount of projects. So, answering your second question about what we look for, I would say apart from portfolio and speed and quality ratio, which is important for any studio, we love studios which are like to learn, who are taking our feedback, who are improving, and if we see that the quality from prototype to prototype is improving, for us that's the best signal that we want to keep this studio, that we want to continue working with them, and that's the best. And also there's one more thing, of course it's important to understand trends, but it's kind of the basic requirements for hyper casual. But if a studio is capable to think more in terms of game feel, that's also a very good sign.
Thanks so much. Actually, I don't know if there is another next question. I would like to ask the same question to Berkay Usto. If you want to answer, I will appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, sure. So the main thing that we try to keep the balance between the studio number and the number of the PMs, publishing managers, game managers that we have. Because as Ekaterina mentioned as well, what you want to do is to give time to the studio and to the publishing manager enough to have that freedom and investment into studio, right? Because imagine that I'm running 15 studios, then I wouldn't have time because I would have different 15 meetings, probably weekly, and then I need to daily tasks as well. So what we want to do is to have the enough PMs to be working with the studios, because the communication is the key, right? From the ideation to the start. So I see that we are sometimes talking with the studios as well, and the one thing that they are, I think, the most complained is that the feedbacks at the end, right? So imagine that there is no feedback until the end, and when the APK sends it over, PM gives a feedback, which needs to be done from the beginning, right? So that's what we are trying to avoid. We need to have a strong communication all over the timeline, so we can have of course, not every game will be a lunch, but of course that we know that we tried everything and we invested enough time with you as well. So that's the thing. And for the second question as well, what we would love to see is that of course, the trend analysis and the ideation quality. So this is I think should be in every studio, right? After that, how well are you developing the game, which allows it to make a bigger game, right? You can make the game, because I know that it depends how you code, right? If you code in a way that it can't be improved in terms of when you come to monetization and the soft launch phase, that is the one thing, right? So you need to be checking that as well. That's why we are always checking the portfolio of the studios that we want to work with as well, because it gives you a really good idea about checking the different mechanics, different genres, how they do, which genres are you good at, because the games can speak for themselves, right? So yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you for the answer. One more question.
Hello, my question is either to Ekaterina or to Berkay. So I was wondering that you mentioned that the market is slightly changing and the models that you work are changing. I see that most publishers tend to work with KPI models rather than paper prototype models. There are many opportunities for studios to work with KPI models with almost any publisher. So my question, actually, the hard thing right now is to decide on which publisher to work with. So as I said, there are many options. What should a studio look for a publisher while decide? Because as you mentioned that most publishers prefer to work at least like for a 3 to 4 months period, and in that period the studio should burden all of the costs of the development, so it is a really high opportunity cost to decide which publisher. What can a studio look for if he or she agrees to work on a KPI model and not get any revenue during that testing periods?
I think it needs to come from your side, to be honest. But in my opinion, I think, and I really love that question, like the benchmarks, the KPIs, right? I always say that I have one benchmark, which is the profitability, because if you have a really big data, right? Everything is connected to each other. When you put ads into it, it involves so many things. And when you have the UA side, on the other end, you have the in-game metrics, you have the churns, etc., etc. But if you just reduce it to 2 or 3 metrics or 5 metrics, then you miss the lots of room of improvement as well. So what I would say is that it's best to check if the game can be profitable or not, because we know that of course it depends on the business model, but what are you looking for? Are you looking for the profit, or are you looking for the brand awareness, right? So because that what we would really love to do and what we are doing, you might not so often see our games on the top charts, because we want the games to be profitable for us and for you as well, because we have the revenue shares, and if your game has the number 1 or number 10 in the top charts, but if you don't make any money, it's also a decision to be made. And of course I respect the other business model as well. You might want to increase the brand awareness too, but what we want to do, what we are doing is the focus on the profitability.
Any more questions?
The question that could you share your recommendations to the small studios or for the already mature one in terms of the hyper-casual, how to succeed in the hyper-casual games market like in 2022?
Sure. Well, apart from very basic responses like iterate fast, improve yourself and stuff, to be more concrete, like how to iterate fast, how to improve yourself, like it's not obvious. But I would say like a lot of studios are improving through communications. So the more you communicate with other studios, the more you communicate with other publishers, the more information you centralize in your brain, the more you're able to take the good decisions, because you can see like how those publishers are solving some problem which you might face, how other studios are dealing with it, and the more you are aware of hyper-casual space, the more you are like in this in this microcosm, I would say, the more you will find the ways for improvement. And also you will make those improvements consciously because you possess all the necessary information. You have people to reach out for advice, whether it's publishers or some fellow studios, for example, which you are looking up to and you would like to become like them, for example. So keep in contact with everyone. Just monitor, scan what's going on, even if it's like just, I don't know, silly industry gossips. It might solve your problem one day.
Thank you.
Of course, like the being fast, as Ekaterina said, is kind of saturated as well as the runners. So I think the key point is to, as I said about the ideation, we need to be thinking about the first, not just one step, but 2 or 3 steps as well. At least like we need to have a rough idea. I think that's one of the key things, because if you build the base well, then the building goes up easier, right? So that's the first thing. And the other thing I think is really important to check the biggest movers in the market, right? Because every day there are tons of new games. Of course, it's hard to catch up with them, but what I would suggest, I would say that maybe 1 or 2 person can be responsible for that in your team, just to check every game, every new mechanic, because the market has a way of work in itself as well. Every publisher tests the games in another way. So you will have the learnings, you will have the observation as well with that way. So I think that keep an eye on the market constantly, and I literally say every day, would be one of the key things for the development of the company.
Thank you.
I think my advice would be simply for studios to try out new things and experimenting and going beyond their limits, especially in 2022. Of course, we should look through the market every time and, still make games mainly influenced by the market and the trends. But I think we saw that in 2022 it's important to try out new things other than just copying a game, copying a trendy mechanic and just putting a new theme onto it and trying to make it succeed to top charts. I think we should try out new stuff as studios. I would say that.
Thank you. Thank you for the participation at our panel discussion. I hope we cover a lot of more information and share for you more tricks for the in terms of the hyper casual games market. Thank you for the panelists.